And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports for the Tuesday Rugby News live show, which is actually supposed to happen yesterday. But things happen, life happens, and we are live today, which is the main thing. Moving forward, this show will be moving to a Monday. We'll be doing Monday and I think it's Wednesday Rugby News live shows, and then the Thursday night Rugby Fan Forum. Those will be your three sort of midweek rugby streams. And then obviously lots of videos going up during the week, and then obviously all the watch-alongs over the weekend. So don't worry, it's going to be a very stacked, schedule of rugby stuff. And I want to talk about today because we've had some very interesting Six Nations results. We've had two very interesting URC results, and we've got another weekend of URC action ahead of us this weekend with some local derbies once again taking place on our streams, or screens rather, and yeah, lots and lots of stuff going on in the rugby world. You've got the Springboks who are currently in camp, and they are down in Cape Town. And then we've also got, for example, some transfer rumours. And the big sort of story at the moment is the Stormers are hosting the Sharks this weekend, and there is a very big possibility, or supposedly lots of rumours going around, about a potential planned protest before the game outside the stadium from the Stormers supporters. So a little bit of extra drama potentially on the cards for this weekend's URC action. But yeah, before we sort of get stuck into all of this, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Let's start with this protest, shall we? Now, it's an article that sort of came out earlier today, and apparently a lot of Western Province Rugby and Stormers fans are not happy with the SA Rugby-led administration who are currently running the union after it was put into administration, and we've seen the whole thing with South Maria and all the issues. And basically, it's weird because we're talking about our pride and joy of a rugby team right now in terms of the Stormers, and who can't do anything wrong on the pitch. They're currently sitting second in the URC. They're in the next round of the Champions Cup. They're producing world-class players. They're playing nice rugby. John Dobson's a nice guy, and he's just signed a new contract. There's really not much to complain about from a team perspective. But as we know, the franchise and that union has been a bit of a disaster for a while. And they went into administration, and SA Rugby has to step in and take over. And Rian Oberholzer is currently the administrator who is sort of heading things up. And he's actually supposed to be taking on Yuri Ru's role within SA Rugby. And the big sort of headline is that Western Province fans are saying that SA Rugby gave us another dictator, sort of inferring that Rian Orbal is very much his way or the highway. And I think a lot of the issues come with the fact that he's not, sticking to maybe the traditional views or the traditional, or what you sort of traditionally happened within that union. And it's interesting because we don't often see protest action, for example, within the rugby space, especially in South Africa. I mean, like the rugby fan, like for example, Lions fans, all we do is complain about it's live on Twitter. None of us have actually jumped onto the onto the protest bandwagon. Maybe we should actually. Maybe we should be picketing outside Ellis Park. I don't think it's going to help, which is probably why we don't do it. But yes, apparently there could be a protest happening outside the stadium this weekend. It is Sharks versus Stormers, so it should be a good crowd as well. It'd be interesting to first of all see if it happens. If there's any sort of weight to it. And obviously when you sort of see these allegations, you can't dismiss them. You can't just assume, oh no, they just don't like a specific person, or they just decide to leave Newlands and we're pissed off and therefore, they're the bad guys. You've actually got to look at it. You've actually got to understand, okay, well, there are people who don't like it. The fans don't seem to like it. Now, why don't the fans like it? Do the players like it, for example? Are the coaches happy? What's the environment within Western Province Rugby? And that's obviously quite a difficult thing to gauge. You'll never understand exactly how all the fans feel, exactly how all the coaches feel, exactly how, all the various different parties that make up a rugby union, rugby team. So it's difficult because the problem is, as I said, you look at the on-field stuff and it's difficult to sit there and say, well, things aren't going bad, aren't going well, because on the field, the performances are there, there's a good culture, from the very sort of face value, things seem to be going pretty well. but we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And as I said, is it a small fraction of disgruntled fans who themselves might even have an agenda? Is there genuine issues with Rian Alberholzer? Which, if there are, we need to find out. By the way, because as I said, if he's currently, and again, apparently he's quite reluctant to take over at SA Rugby, but if there are genuine issues and he's not the right type of person, and there's a lot of proof in how he's doing things at Western Province Rugby to back that sort of statement up, we need to know about it, because the last thing we need is someone who is not fit to run SA Rugby running SA Rugby. So yeah, it's a bit worrying to sort of even sort of see allegations and stuff like that about it, and I think it's quite important that from a media perspective and from a rugby administration perspective, that we kind of get to the bottom of what is going on. Why is there disgruntlement, and is it justified? Because if it's not justified and things are actually going quite well, and you can justify all the decisions that are currently being taken, and at the end of the day, being in charge means making unpopular decisions for the good of the union. And I think any true supporter can get behind anyone who's making decisions, as long as you can see and it can be justified as the best decision for the union. That's all we want at the end of the day. We want to see our teams doing well. We want to see our teams at the top. And to do that, we want to see them being run really well. And that means that the administration needs to be looking good, financially needs to be in good positions, and we also need to be looking to innovate. We need to be looking to improve. And I personally don't think that there are any fans out there who, if they can see that their union or team or club is being run well, is being run honestly, and all the decisions are being made for the best of the team, as well as having ambition and looking to always progress, fans will not be upset. At the end of the day, we just want to see a plan, and we want to see that how do we solve the things that aren't good, and how do we improve the things that are good. And that is not a lot to ask, But South Africa in general doesn't have the best track record when it comes to sports administration. Let's just be perfectly honest. There are plenty of examples where things have been really bad. And this is what I'm saying. You can't take these sort of allegations lightly, because you do want to make sure the right people are involved in the right spaces. And as I said, I can't make a decision. I can't make a judgment right now on whether it is the right thing, whether there is justification. I don't know enough about the information. I'm not on the ground. Unfortunately, I'm not in the offices of the Western Province Rugby Union. I'm not within the fan clubs and stuff down in Cape Town, where I can gauge exactly what's going on and where the gripes are coming. But again, you can't take any of these sort of allegations lightly. We do need to then say, okay, something's the issue, and what is the issue? So yeah, there's not much we can say about it, too much to say, because I think a lot of the information, there's not a lot of information around, and we don't know how, with the information that is around, we don't quite know exactly how reliable it is or how factual and stuff like that. But I think it's worth monitoring, and I think it'll be this interesting this weekend. There's been rumors about a protest for a couple of weeks now, and they've emerged once again 4 days before the game. So it sounds like it's still on the cards. But we've seen certain protests in sport where they're pretty small and not insignificant, and we've seen some pretty big protests which have really worked. For example, if you look at British football, when they announced the Super League, and there were massive protests, massive feedback and reaction and stuff like that, and they did have to change things. So protest action does work, and if it's warranted, then fantastic. But I'm going to be very interested to see if it does happen this weekend, and what then the reaction will be to that protest action. But John, let me know what you think. Do you think there are issues within West Province Rugby Union? Well, we know there are issues, but should we be worried? Should we be worried that things aren't happening well at board level, or do you think that there is still a lot? Because I think there's quite a lot of tribalism within the union. There's a lot of people who sort of back the old administrations. So I think there's a lot of circles in and around there. Also cliques, for example. I think certain people want others to fail regardless of whether they're doing well or not. If I'm an administrator right now at Western Province Rugby, and I'm trying to justify the things I'm doing, I'll just be going, well, we're top of the log on the URC. We've won the URC. We've tied down John Dobson. So, our head coach who's affected all this change committed to us. We've tied down France Mahed. We've made some really good signings. Things are going well on the field. We've got a lot to try and do off the field, but we're making big strides. So, yeah, maybe Rian Alberholzer isn't a popular person, but maybe he's not popular because he's making really tough decisions that have to be made, and people don't like those decisions. But, hopefully more information. And again, and this is also the nice thing, when you start giving, airtime to these people, you can start to really get more information about exactly what's going on. And if you get enough traction, then all of a sudden, they might be forced into making a statement or responding. For example, in the whole line situation, an article comes out about, reviews, coaches' reviews and players complaining about managers and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, it gets to a point where Lions actually have to release a statement and say that, they're very upset that things have been leaked and what's been said in the media is wrong and stuff like that. And as a Lions fan, I sit there going, mate, where there's smoke, there's fire. You basically admitted that this process did actually happen, and my gut feel says, right, well, then I'm going to actually back what I'm seeing, because it does sort of line up. And to be honest, getting statements and doing big sort of investigations to how the stuff is being leaked is not what we need as a union. We need players, we need money, we need to sort out what the hell's going on there. We need performances and stuff like that. So, yeah. But so I just want to sort of start on that and touch base and sort of see, and we'll monitor that as things go by. As there are any major updates, we'll throw up a video. Otherwise, we'll chat about it on our live streams throughout the week. And we have to wait and see if there will be a protest on Saturday afternoon before the game. In terms of some other news, some very interesting Six Nations results. I've got a review going up very shortly, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But a very open Six Nations. Ireland up out in front on 15 points, but three other teams in France, Scotland, and England all on 10 points. So there is a 3-team chasing pack that if Ireland do slip up, there are teams that are already there to jump in and say, come on, we're ready to try and steal the Six Nations from Ireland under your nose. Because it really is Ireland's Six Nations to lose. They're the only ones where the Grand Slam is still on the cards. They're the only ones still undefeated. Scotland went down this weekend for the first time. Obviously, Ireland beat France, so they lost that game. So, it's Ireland's championship to lose. But I tell you what, I think that Scottish side can do a job. And I think Hugh Jones, I think it was yesterday or over the weekend, came out and said, "Listen, like Ireland, you can underestimate us at your own peril. We back ourselves. We actually think we can beat you." Personally, I do think they can beat them. I think that it'll have to be a case of Ireland not being at the races and Scotland having to put in a brilliant performance to do that. But I certainly, after having watched Scotland and Ireland throughout the championship, I certainly don't sit there and think it's an impossibility that Scotland can actually go and beat Ireland. And if they do, then Scotland all of a sudden could be on the verge of winning the Six Nations, or they could open the door for France or England. So I've been very impressed with the Six Nations that we've seen this year. I think it's been a really close one. I think it's been really entertaining. And I think that this is kind of more the sort of Six Nations we need to see more of. And again, I think it's a reflection of world rugby at the moment, where I do think teams are closer than they've ever been from a performance and a level sort of perspective. I don't think there's as much difference in teams now than there was maybe 5 years ago even. We don't have that one dominant side like, for example, New Zealand during 2011, 2015, where certain teams just couldn't be touched. Ireland are the number one team in the world, 100%, but I do believe that there are 2 or 3 sides that can beat them. So that's why we've been saying this World Cup is going to be so exciting, because so many teams can possibly win it. Now, something else I want to talk about a little bit, I'm very interested to try and get people's feedback, is the URC results we saw this weekend. Now, the Lions went and won, which was fantastic because we needed a win. But the Sharks result, for me, I think the Sharks are in a little bit of trouble. I think they're under a lot of pressure. A little bit like the Bulls as well. I think they're a side that, the Bulls, I think, are a side that started off really well. They went off quickly and things were good, and now they're in a really bad slump. For me, the Sharks continue to be horrendously inconsistent. And with only 4 rounds of URC left, if they were to stumble for another 2 or 3 matches, they could find themselves outside that top 8. Now, they're playing the Stormers away this weekend. The Stormers will go into that match very much as favourites. And the Sharks will have to play to their best if they are to try and get a result. The Sharks then have to travel, and they're going to Wales, where they're playing against Scarlets. And they then are at home against Benetton, who are one of the sides who are trying to chase into that top 8. And if they get the right couple of results, then they could very much be playing against the Sharks for a place in that top 8. And then their last game is at Munster at home. Now, their sort of saving grace could potentially be that Munster would be in the middle of, would have already sort of secured their spot in the playoffs potentially, and might not be sending the strongest side. But if they do, and if they are seeing their strongest side, the Sharks have not got easy fixtures. Scarlets are not a difficult match, but it is away. And Benetton are a side who, when they pitch up and if they've got all their Italian internationals, which of them there are a lot, are also playing good rugby. So it's almost vital for the Sharks to win this weekend, because if they lose this weekend and a couple of other sides pick up results, they could find themselves at risk of actually losing out. And that would be absolutely catastrophic if they were to not get Champions Cup rugby. To have invested into that squad, you can't have Evan Etzebeth and Sia Khaleesi and Sia Khaleesi off to Racing, but all those sort of type of players playing in the Challenge Cup and not making top 8 URC, not playing in the playoffs. These guys are there to win trophies, and you're bringing these guys in to win trophies. You can't have. They basically can put an international player in almost every single position across the field. International cat player. I think the only thing they don't have is 2 international locks. But across the entire sort of 1 through to 15, they can put an international player in every single position. And even have a couple still on the bench. That's how much depth the Sharks side had. That's how much investment has gone into the Sharks side. So you cannot then be missing playoffs. You cannot then be sitting with the Lions, who don't have a single international current player in the Challenge Cup next season. That would be an absolute disaster. So they need to be careful. Need to be very, very careful. Let's go to some of the comments, shall we say? Alpha Cheetahs, Dwayne Vermeulen still the best block 8. I was very impressed with what I saw from Dwayne Vermeulen this weekend. I would say Sharks showing they still haven't gotten anywhere since last year. Bulls seems they want to sneak into the back door. I tend to agree. I think the Bulls started well, slowed down, and now thinking, well, just try and sort of squeeze in there. But I don't think they've made it a lot more difficult than they probably needed to do. And I tell you what, I tend to almost agree that the Sharks haven't really progressed. I think they had to. They were always going to have a bit of a bounce. I think we see it a lot in football, where obviously managers being sacked or coaches being sacked is far more common, and there's almost inevitably always a bounce after that. And sometimes that's actually a reason into it. They think, well, we need 2 or 3 victories if we fire the coach. There's that bounce afterwards. It doesn't always happen, but there's often a bounce where players suddenly go, shit, our coach has been fired. We've got to prove that it's actually not us that's the issue. We've got to make sure they know that he is the issue and it's not our issue. And often players sort of step up their game and they get a couple of good results. And they did. There's no doubt about it. Sean Everett got the sack. Neil Powell came in and the Sharks had a couple of very nice results. Once again, all of a sudden, though, you're sitting there going, they look like a beatable side. They are a beatable side. I'll still win to beat them. And if they don't really start stepping up and bringing consistency to their game, then they're not going to be a great side at the end of the day. That's what Stormers have done so well. They've brought in consistency. And I think the big thing for me is we don't often see growth and learnings coming into that Sharks game and the Sharks team. Whereas I think Stormers have gotten things wrong at times. Very, very wrong at times. But I think what's most important about it is when they get things wrong, they're very happy to go, okay, we got that wrong. That's fine. We will take it on the chin. How did we get it wrong? Why did we get it wrong? How do we prevent us getting it wrong again? And any coach and team and environment where your failures are genuinely useful to you and really spur you on is an environment, and that's going to sort of create a team that can really improve. And that's kind of my worry with Sharks, that I have very rarely seen them lose, and you sit there going, well, those are a couple of the reasons you lose, and then the next couple of weeks you see, oh, okay, so they've sorted it out. I think the Stormers have done that quite well. I think the Sharks are struggling to do that to a certain degree. Michelle's saying the problem with the Sharks, they depend too much on the box in the team, and when they're not there, they fall flat because they're not developing enough young talent. But again, the players are there. Rowan Janssen van Rensburg, Francois Venter, Percy Buthelezi, Vincent Chatuka, Intutuko Ntunu, Renny Hugo, Cabran Krobler. Those are good players. Verona Koch, Ben Tapuai. They're good players. Cohen Bosch is playing great. Grant Williams is part of the Springbok squad, or was part of the Springbok squad last year. So they've got good players. I think pound for pound, if you lined the Sharks team up last week versus like the Lions team that beat Glasgow Warriors, probably you would almost, if you had to combine them, you probably have more Sharks players in there. So I still don't think they can talk about a lack of talent. Obviously, Springboks going to make you can't you can't quantify how big of a difference having Eben Etzebeth, Sia Khaleesi, that front row, Lekanyo and the likes are going to make. Obviously, I mean, I think they've got 10 Springboks, 10 current Springboks. Jaden Hendrickson into that side, Makazole Mapimpi into that side. There's no doubt they make a massive difference. But with the players they've signed, for me, they had the players they needed to beat Ulster this weekend. And so I don't think it's just as easy as saying, well, when they're not on, when the Boks aren't there, they can't compete. Because they should still be able to compete. And I feel they should be competing, and they're not. And that sort of speaks more widely than just the players. Maybe an environment issue or a coaching issue, and they've got to try and sort it out. Jana's saying, if there's a mass protest, I hope Stormers lose. I'm a big Stormers fan, but things like that normally don't work out for a home team. Yeah, and I suppose sometimes if you feel strong enough, you kind of that's almost the result you want. You want to go there, you want to disrupt things. There's a bad result, it gets more sort of traction, and people sit there saying, oh, well, then we have to change things. And that's kind of like the big issue. That's kind of the point of a protest, is to spark reaction. But yeah, maybe it is enough to put to the Stormers off. So maybe if I'm the Sharks, I'm sitting there going, oh, please can there be a protest? Please can there be some off-field stuff, which might take a bit of an edge off the Stormers side. That was saying I have more hopes in Sharks performing in Heineken Cup over URC because they'll have the strongest team. Also, the Sharks had a very weak front row Saturday. Yeah, look, I think losing Carly Sardi was a big blow before that game. Although having said that, I thought Henry Jacobs got across the park very well. Scrum-wise, though, it wasn't quite the same. And I think they are missing Karen from Furen. And obviously they need Bongi Manambi back. But yeah, that was definitely their the one aspect, or the one part of the team which was like, that's not great. Yeah, and Tuko Nkunu, who is a really good player, still very young though. And when he is he has to shine in that front row, and he's got all the pressure. It's not ideally where you want him to be. I would say, so, and obviously, even if Sharks make playoff, away game versus Ulster, Stormers, or Leinster, game over. Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to go any further than playoffs at this rate. I just don't really see it. I don't see them making a final, for example. Maybe a semi. But that top 8 and the Champions Cup qualification is almost more important than anything else, really. That's the big thing that you're playing for in that Champions Cup. You've got to get that spot in the Champions Cup. And if you don't, financially it's a disaster. PR-wise it's a disaster. From a playing perspective, you want to be playing in the Champions Cup. You don't want to be playing in the Challenge Cup. So those are massive issues that are there. So very interested to sort of see what will happen to the Sharks over the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks. And then in terms of some transfer rumors, the Lions might be signing players. How is that? Wow. We might be losing Jacques Fourie, which has, been one of the few things I've had to celebrate for a while. But, beggars can't be choosers. No, I mean, if we lose Jacques Fourie, I think that would be an absolute joke. He's just signed a new 2-year contract. So the fact that, there's even rumors that he might be leaving is very frustrating because that shouldn't even be a thing. That's the whole point. 2 years committed to the union, but apparently he's not got a big offer as a head coach potentially somewhere. I think it's Japan that's looking. So yeah, that's not great to hear. But there is a couple of transfer rumors. Now, first of all, there's also some good news on Archie Snyman. Apparently, he's getting very close to returning, and that he's actually available for selection. They provide an update, and they said, on the injury front, Archie Snyman returned to training with the squad in recent weeks and is available for selection. So now we wait and see when that selection will come. And they're going to have to choose it quite carefully in terms of, where does he play? Well, obviously, it's lock, but I mean, where, from a literally a stadium point of view, where's he going to play? How many minutes is he going to play? How do we introduce him? What do we do to get the best out of him? But in terms of the Lions, there is rumours that the Lions are looking to try and bring back Armand Akka van der Merwe to Emirates Airline Park, which would be an absolutely sensational signing. Obviously, I wanted Malcolm Marx. I'm being a bit picky here. But the Lions' hooker position has been a disaster. And Akka van der Merwe is exactly the type of player we need. We need somebody that with grunt, with aggression. We need a world-class hooker, and he can be a world-class hooker. And I think if he wants to play for the Springboks again, probably just come back and play in South Africa. So apparently that's sort of part of it as well. And look, to be fair, I think, the other unions are pretty stacked from a hooker basis. The Sharks have got Bongi Manambi, Karen van Furen, Dan Jooster, Fez and Bart. They've got hooking options. You look at the Stormers, and there is Joseph Dweber. There is Jaja Kotsu, I really, really rate. There's under Hugo Fenter, and then Scorin Tabeni's just made his comeback. So they've got lots of options there. You look at the Bulls, they've still got Bismarck Duplessis, who is getting on in years, but Jan-Hendrik Wessels is, touted as the next best thing. And obviously Jan Krobelaar is one of the form hookers in the country. So, yeah, if, Ak van der Merwe is looking to come back to South Africa, the Lions do seem the most obvious location for him. The other good news, apparently they're looking at a couple of signings. That apparently loose forward Jean-Ray Rudolph is on the sort of the cards, and Ruben de Haas. Scrumoff is also somebody that they are looking at. I like Jean-Ray Rudolph. I think he's a very, very nice player. Very impressed with him. We don't need loose forwards, though. We need locks, people. We need centers. We need, like a scrum off. I don't mind an extra scrum off. I'm happy with that. And Ruben de Haas, not played massive amounts of minutes. Plays as rugby for the USA, just by the way, at the moment. But as most of you coming off the bench for the Premiership and hasn't played. I don't actually think he's played this year. I'm happy with to bring somebody like that in. He played for the Cheetahs there for a while. But I think I look at Jean-Ray Rudolph and I think, of all the positions, not really what we need. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sniff at any new players. And I suppose, look, we did see how much not happy Frankie Horn was a very big miss for the Lions. He comes back this weekend, looked right at his best as well, by the way. Really good to see him back. And I think maybe we did need an extra number 8 or likes. But yeah, we're gonna end up there, people there. So hopefully, please can the Lions go sign some players? I'd really appreciate that. Potential protest happening in Stormers on Saturday. I'll monitor that as well. Sharks, are they panicking? That's the video I put out earlier. Are they at panic stations yet? And Six Nations for me is looking fantastic. That's kind of the summary of what we've spoken about today. Well, this is on the comments bar just before I wrap up. I'm going to say off topic, what you think about some people complaining about the World Cup final not being so interesting because of how these pools are set up. I'm not, obviously none of us like the way the pools are set up. At the end of the day, the team that wins the World Cup will be the best team. And I think that there are certain teams which will have a much easier route to the final, and there'll be teams which have a far more difficult route to the finals. Springboks being one of them. But the whole idea of you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. I think that's going to have to be the case. And I think we're now looking at if a side comes from the South African, New Zealand sort of island side and go on to win it, there's going to be no complaints about who's won that World Cup. I think the complaints will more be like if a Wales suddenly sneaks to the semi-final, pitch up for 2 matches and thing. But at the end of the day, it's not great. I do think that this has been a big call to rework it. The fact that people are saying that I think there's only 2 teams from the current top 5 that can actually make the semi-finals. So it's a massive issue. But I think hopefully you should still get a really good World Cup final. And at the end of the day, World Cup final is a World Cup final. Yes, it might not be necessarily South Africa Ireland in the final or New Zealand Ireland in the final. If the draw, depending on how the draw sort of will work out. But it's a World Cup final at the end of the day, and I don't think that it'll ever be any less of an occasion because of the teams that are playing in it. And things can change, like at the moment, those are sort of the top 5 teams, but things can change very quickly. But yeah, last couple of comments. Katrina said, I think they should try Tapawai at 15 or wing. In his 2 seasons, he's not scored no tries. Maybe we can get him to play himself back to Isaac contentions. Definitely wouldn't be at full back. I think he's a centre out and out. You can try him on the wing, though. Agree on the Archie coming back is good news. Agree that we need more depth at the Lions. I haven't actually watched Rise yet, the Sia Khaleesi documentary. I actually want to do it properly. I actually want to sit down when I've got time and actually really enjoy it. So, I just haven't had time the last couple of days. I'm hoping to watch it tomorrow night. Our Sharks, Rowan and Fenter, they're usually properly 100%. Send those guys up. Send those guys up. And we'll make use of them. People, please do smash like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. And I will see you guys all tomorrow.